Hi Facebook, Eli Blumenthal from USA Today. We are at the Samsung Galaxy S8 launch event. Around here, look at this, a brand new Galaxy S8. We are here with Ed Babe, personal tech columnist from USA Today, and some special guests.
I always butcher the name, okay? Carolina
Milanese.
Yes, who is a very respected industry analyst with creative strategies. Obvious question, I know we're getting the question out there on Facebook, it's a question we're all asking. Did Samsung do what it had to do to sort of change the conversation from that other phone, you know, the one that kept catching fire?
I think they've done a great job this morning in finding the balance of not pretending nothing happened. They again apologized. They've gone way beyond what they needed to do to find the root cause of a problem and fixing that, and going beyond in making sure that they can continue to innovate. And innovate also means taking some risks as far as design, but doing so in a way that QA is absolutely strict.
Yeah, let's talk about the design. What they have accomplished here, and again, there's two new phones. It's the S8, Galaxy S8 and the Galaxy S8 Plus with an actual plus sign rather than PLUS. It's one of the first questions I asked. Anyway, they managed to get a 5.8-inch display on the 8 and a 6.2-inch display on the 8 Plus. And what's interesting about, and so those are phablet-sized screens, pretty large screens. What's interesting, though, is they managed to squeeze it into a form factor that's really not much bigger than last year's devices, which had far smaller displays.
Absolutely. I think when you put it together and you compare it, for instance, with the iPhone 7 Plus, you really see how you get so much more screen real estate, but the footprint of the actual phone doesn't get bigger. As a matter of fact, it is narrower than the Plus. So for somebody who has small hands, it's a really nice feel.
Yeah, and here we have actually
Right here is the iPhone 7 Plus.
The iPhone 7 Plus, which of course has a large display as well.
And this is the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. For people who are just joining us, hi, for those just joining us, we are at the Samsung Galaxy S8 launch event.
Lincoln Center, New York City.
Lincoln Center, New York City. Eli Blumenthal, Ed Big, Carolina Milanese. We have a nice... Sorry about that. We have the phones right here. This on your left is the Galaxy S8 Plus, the brand new Galaxy S8 Plus. It's got, as you can see, a full screen. There's not really any bezel.
6.2-inch display. Yeah, that's how they did this. They eliminated the bezels, and what's missing? Well, you don't see a physical home button like you have on the iPhone here and like you had on the prior generation of the Samsung Galaxies. Instead, the home button is effectively a pressure-sensitive button that's embedded in the display.
That's right. And then they moved their fingerprint scanner at the back.
Right.
And so when you compare it to the phone, the iPhone.
The Galaxy S8 is the Plus version. So
Correct.
Yeah, now here we actually, let's show off, this is last year's Galaxy S7 phone, which effectively replaces. Here it is against the S8.
We have a lot of phones here.
Right.
Those joining.
And you can see the S8 is a little bit taller, but when you consider there's a much larger display. This has a 5.1-inch display. This is 5.8. That's a big difference, and yet you can see, again, this is actually a little bit thinner and just slightly taller.
So it's about the same size, and as you can see here, at the top where the Samsung name is, there's all that space. You don't have that. This is the S8. You don't have that space at the top. It's very thin this year. You see the camera, the scanners. We'll get to all that in 1 second. But as Carolina was pointing out, the bottom, there is a home button there and a fingerprint sensor on the Galaxy S7. That's the one on the right. On the S8, the phone on the left, Ed, there is not a home button, a physical home button.
A physical home button. Again, there's a pressure-sensitive button that's sort of underneath the screen that will show up as you need it. Now, this is a curved display.
This is the S8 Plus.
Excuse me, the S8 Plus. Make it come alive. And as with other Samsung devices of recent vintage, it's got that sort of external, or you can use the edge of the display for external content, different content.
That's right. It is a nice way to shortcut on your most used apps or get content more readily. But of course, this time around, aside from that, they also have Bixby that is supposed
Yes.
to help you navigate.
And we're going to talk about Bixby. Bixby, of course, is, I guess, the shortcut is it's their answer to Siri and Alexa and the Google Assistant and Cortana. There are some differences. Frankly, Bixby, as I understand it, we haven't really tested it yet, is still a work in progress, at least on the voice side. But they are taking a different approach here.
They are. I think if you think about it more as an intelligent interface, which is how they positioned it, you're going to have less room for people to be disappointed, because this is the very start of something bigger. Of course, Samsung has invested in the acquisition of Viv.
Yep.
That
Viv,
is,
as I understand it, is not yet incorporated into Bixby.
correct. Bixby is homegrown by Samsung, and the idea is that it's supposed to help you navigate through some steps that might be cumbersome to do through touch and be able to talk, but also with things where with the camera you can point at a bottle of wine and it tells you what kind of wine, or a book and it tells you what book, and then you can order it through Amazon. So
Right, and you can get to Bixby. There's a dedicated Bixby
Correct.
button here right on the side under the volume button. I don't know if you can see that. And again, Bixby's a work in progress, so it's not fully enabled yet, as I
no,
understand it.
and I think that so it supports Korean and English to start with, so obviously limited on that for the voice front. But the way I think about it is artificial intelligence that has a first name. That's how I think about it. It's not really an assistant yet. And I think consumers need to understand that to avoid being disappointed.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. I mean, do you think Samsung, it seems to me the onus is on Samsung to really communicate what Bixby is to, as you say, not disappoint consumers. 'Cause consumers, and probably we're guilty of it in the press, we immediately lump them in with Siri and Alexa and all the rest. But they're not quite the same
No,
thing.
it's a different approach. It is really focusing on user experience and getting consumers to do whatever they need to do faster in an easier way.
Right. One of the things. Oh, did we have a question? We have some questions. All right, let's take some questions.
So first off, cost. Mike Lord asked, how much is this thing going to cost?
They didn't say it's. The carriers are making separate announcements. My understanding is the range is, and you may have heard different, is somewhere from like $729 on up for the 8, the S8, and $100 more, I believe, for the Plus. Give or take.
Verizon is starting it at $720 for the S8.
Right.
T-Mobile starts at about
$750.
and I believe it's, as you said, Ed, $100 more for the Plus version.
Right,
so
and
$700, $750.
Right, and all the carriers have slightly different ways. They have different plans and such. So the price you pay may vary a little bit, but that's the range.
That's kind of the range of a flagship product.
It's coming April 21st, by the way, although you can pre-order, I believe now, or
Yeah,
very soon.
And I think there are some deals as well as far as pre-orders with Gear VR.
Right, you get the Gear VR. That's, of course, Samsung's virtual reality headset. There's a new version of that, by the way. There's also a controller now for the Gear VR,
Yes,
which is a big deal.
Very welcome, yeah.
And so you'd get the controller, you'd get the Gear VR, and you get some Oculus content as well if you pre-order. Once April 21st comes, I guess they go back to charging you. I didn't hear a price yet. But
They did not, but I would assume it's not going to be far off from what we had before, which was $99.
All right, so we got some questions about the Edge. So
Yes.
it's not the Samsung, like last year was Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge and
Right.
the Galaxy S7. What happened to the Edge?
There's no more Edge per se, but both new phones, the 8, the S8, and the S8 Plus, have Edge displays. So there's no longer a distinction where you as a consumer would have to say, do I want Edge or not? Edge is there either way.
It is, and now is on both sides, and there's the intelligent Edge part where you can allocate shortcuts to it.
Exactly, and there
You can see the Edge.
one of the
below
things you can
display
do
on
with the
corner.
Edge. There are different things you can do.
That's right.
Shortcuts and such.
Yeah, favorite
Headlines.
people and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, so do a quick little recap of what's going on for
Yeah.
those just joining.
Sure, we are here at Lincoln Center, New York City. Very prestigious place to be, classy place to be, where Samsung has just had a big press event. They call it Unpacked, where they unpacked their brand new phones, the Galaxy S8 flagship and its larger sibling, the Galaxy S8 Plus. highly anticipated, highly leaked, frankly, in the days leading up to the launch. So there weren't a lot of surprises here. And of course, these are the phones, as we started out our conversation with, that have to sort of, it's Samsung's chance at redemption, really. They had the Note 7 fiasco last year, which, of course, phones that caught fire hurt Samsung's reputation, cost them some money. What did they have to do here today, and did they do it?
I think we need to move on, right? And consumers will as well. I think it is always useful to put some numbers into the conversation. So if you think about how much the Note as a family of product represents for Samsung, it's about 12% of all the phones, Samsung phones in the market today worldwide. So it's really a small amount of very loyal fan base that they have across the world, right? And so it is moving on from there, see what they learn, and continue to deliver innovation.
And of course, they talked about with this new phone that there's an 8-point battery safety test that Samsung put in the aftermath of the Note issue. So these new phones underwent that 8-point test. In fact, Samsung says all their products will undergo that test.
Yes, it's something that they implemented after the issue and something that will go across the board. And they're actually working from an industry standard perspective to try and implement some of those learnings from an industry point.
And by the way, if you're just joining us, I'm Ed Baig with USA Today. Behind the camera is Eli Blumenthal from USA Today. And of course, this is Carolina
Milanese.
I'm glad you pronounced it right. A very respected industry analyst. Let me ask you something I'm curious about. Samsung has basically committed that they're going to go on with the Note, that they're not giving up on the Note despite the issue, of course, they had last year. A couple of ways to look at that. As you've already suggested, the Note customers were loyal customers, Samsung's most loyal customers. And everybody liked the Note 7. I did. A lot of people did. Of course, that was before we knew they would catch on fire. So Samsung remains committed to that. What's interesting here with the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus is these are large screen devices, tablet-sized screens. Now, what originally got the Note notice was tablet-sized screens. That's no longer, maybe the Note that they come out with, assuming it's still called the Note, will have a slightly bigger display as well. But that, and they'll probably have an S Pen or, know.
Yeah, I think the Note 7, in a way, is what the iPhone 7 Plus was for Apple. It was something that Samsung had packed so much innovation into that device that people that were interested were not just interested for the screen size and the pen, which was what, historically, the people that bought the Note line were interested in the pen. So that was the kind of a shame, if you like, of the issue was that there were more people interested in this design. Now, your question is very interesting because if the form factor is no longer a differentiation, is it just the pen?
Right.
And could Samsung make a pen available to other devices too?
Right. And why wouldn't they?
Right. If they wanted to deliver the experience without using the brand. But I think we go back to how loyal those customers are. People that buy the Note really love the Note.
Presumably still loyal despite...
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I think, and I think that Samsung is going through quite a bit of, TLC with those customers and making sure that they're well looked after.
Right. Okay, so we're getting a bunch of questions here. Just to recap on pricing and release date. So again, on the left here is the Galaxy S8. On the right, the Galaxy S8 Plus. They will both be available on April 21st. Pricing is around $700 to $750 from what we're seeing so far on the Galaxy S8. The S8 Plus is about $100 more, so between $800 and $850. Carriers are announcing the pricing. Samsung did not reveal anything on that front, but it will be available on April 21st. Pre-orders are available either today or tomorrow. They're available this weekend. A lot of questions on battery. Ed and Carolina, will this explode?
Well, we've been charging one here, or we were charging one on actually this new wireless charger. Hasn't exploded yet. Look, I would love your take. My take is, I doubt it. But I also said that after the first battery exploded last year. I said, what are the odds it's going to happen again? Well, guess what? It happened again. And then we all know what happened. 2 recalls before they finally pulled it off the market entirely. So they did have the 8-point battery test, which they put in after the Note. They talked about that. They've been advertising that on TV. That's in place. There's no margin for error here, though, for Samsung.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that everybody at Samsung knows more about batteries than they ever wish to know. They have done independent reviews as well, so it's not, we don't just take Samsung's word that they fix it. They had 3 different independent reviewers that went through analyzing a lot of the phones that were sent back to Samsung. I think they are, really done their due diligence. Life happens. So,
So you guys are confident that, or not confident?
Well, I haven't done a personal test other than would charge it for a few minutes here.
Right, so
I would be very surprised if it exploded again. I'm not going to put odds on it, though.
Yeah. We're in the U.S. Everybody gets sued the moment that you make claims, right? So
There is no chance it will explode. No, I didn't say that. So.
All right, so we're getting some questions here. Lindsay Burlington asks, is it water resistant?
Yes.
Yeah, so just like last year's Galaxies, the phone is water resistant.
Yeah, in fact, and just proof, I did drop one in like a pool of water, and guess what? It survived. So Samsung's had water-resistant phones before, and they've kept it here.
All right, so let's just quickly, for those just joining, rehash some of the big features here. So
Biggest feature is big display in a small form factor.
Right, so we have right here, this is the iPhone 7 Plus, Apple's top-of-the-line iPhone.
For now, and we can talk about Apple. And
this is the Samsung S8 Plus, Samsung's big phone. Now, the size is basically the same.
Yeah.
But Ed, there's something different here, and that's the
Well,
screen.
yeah, exactly. The iPhone, as you can see, has a physical home button, like most smartphones have, on the bezel. Here, the bezel's reduced. There is no physical home button. The button is in the screen, and it's pressure sensitive, so it's there, and you can use it when you need it. But it doesn't take up real estate. Rumors are that the 10th anniversary iPhone will have a similar solution.
Yeah, and I think that what is going to be interesting, if you think about the Galaxy Edge last year, this is kind of the Edge has been an interim step for Samsung. So you started to see basically the bezel on the side disappear with the Edge, and now is the chin and the forehead that has disappeared. I think if Apple moves to a similar design, the wow factor is going to be bigger, just because right now you have so much bezel that is on the iPhone. So, in a way, it's a shame that Samsung had the Edge as an interim form factor, but still doesn't take anything away from how big that screen looks compared to an iPhone Plus.
And again, the bezel, for those who maybe aren't familiar with the term, so if you want, Carolina, can you just point to the bezel here? So that's all this black space at the top of the screen.
Compared to that.
Okay, so the iPhone, let's do that again. The iPhone on the right.
That's as thick as my nail, basically.
And on the Galaxy
At the bottom as well.
And on the S8 Plus,
That's how big it is.
they really shrunk it down.
Correct. Just enough space to have your microphone and your cameras, and that's about it.
Okay, so let's talk about the cameras here, as you mentioned that, Carolina. There's a couple of features on the front cameras that they didn't have last year.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's 8 megapixel. If my memory serves, I don't have the specs right in front of me.
Yeah, it is.
It also is facial recognition, which is interesting because if you're taking a selfie, it'll recognize you. But also, they're using that as one of the ways to unlock the screen. They have a couple of ways to unlock the screen. They've added the iris scanner that was on the Note 7 to these new phones. And that's what it sounds like. You scan your eye, it learns who you are, and then you can unlock the screen through that biometric method. You could alternatively unlock the screen just by having it recognize your face, which is actually much faster. I tried it. It's not as secure, but it's fast. And you could still use a fingerprint, and you could still use a passcode and such.
Yeah, it's giving option to consumers to use different ways.
Well, we can't set up on these devices just yet, but it's the iris scanner and the facial recognition. That's at the top, correct?
I'm sorry?
There are sensors at the top here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I did try it, and it works, but we haven't set it up on these phones here that we're showing you. Well, the cameras, Samsung, again, I haven't had a chance to take pictures with these phones yet. Samsung says the cameras are improved, that they'll do better in low light and all that. We'll just have to go out and take some pictures and see if that's true. I'm sure there are improvements. I mean, it seems the cell phone companies manage to improve cameras every year.
Yeah, and a lot of that improvement comes from the software. So the fact that maybe the megapixel have not changed doesn't necessarily mean that your quality of pictures is going to stay the same.
Okay, now we're right now showing the Spider-Man trailer from yesterday. This is a full screen video. Now, Ed, if you can pull up on your iPhone here, if we could get that same, if you could just open up YouTube.
Right, give me a moment.
So this is what video looks like on the S8 Plus. Are you a fan, Carolina?
I am, and I have to say that the screen really, consuming video content on this device is where you see the power of that kind of infinity pool effect of the screen.
Yeah, it takes the entire display. It really immerses you inside it.
I am, but we're in the middle of this.
Look at it, just the whole display here, basically top to bottom. If you're watching a movie on this, you won't be distracted by the black bars that you would, or even on an older phone like last year's Galaxy S7, the bars at the top there. It just takes over the entire display.
I'm not sure exactly.
All right, so let's just leave that there. Any questions, comments? We have some questions about waterproof. It is waterproof. Both phones are waterproof, just like last year's phones. They're also dust resistant?
Dust proof. Yeah, dust resistant. That's right.
There's on the iPhone. It's hard to probably tell.
Okay, so let's. So here's how a movie looks on the iPhone. Black bars on the side, and there's how a video looks on the Galaxy S8 Plus.
And you can immediately see how much bigger that picture is.
Right. Yeah, they're going to exploit that real estate. They're going to exploit that real estate, which of course they should. We should just throw a nod to LG because they recently announced a G6 and kind of did the same thing. They had a big display and a smaller form factor.
Yeah, and that's what consumers want. Nobody's screaming for a larger phone. You want a larger screen. And I think that's, to your point, LG has done that with the G6, but they don't have quite that edge the way that Samsung has.
So, Carolina, we actually have an LG G6 here. We came prepared today. These are the latest phones from all the big manufacturers. Juggling. So we got the iPhone, the LG, and the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus right here. These are the latest and greatest phones, or some of the latest and greatest phones you could buy right now or soon. What do you guys think of, which one would you recommend? Without having seen the Galaxy S8 for an extended period of time just yet.
It really depends what you want, right? At the end of the day, there's obviously, when you're talking about the iPhone, you're making a choice of platform as well. It's not just about the hardware, right? But here you have two devices that are running Android. It's interesting to your point about, the edge, how LG has done a really good job on the side, but the chin and the forehead are still quite big, and this is because LG still has a logo at the front versus Samsung that has moved it to the back, so now not having to have the name as they did last year right at the front.
This is the Galaxy S7 that you have right here.
That's right. So moving that, moving the logo away, whereas LG kept it there instead of putting it at the back.
We also have here the Google Pixel. This is the Google phone, just to get a nice little
which also has nice large bezels.
Correct.
These are all the big screen phones on the market. You have the Galaxy S8 Plus, Ed, over here. Then we have, what else we have?
We have the, let's see, I'm looking at it backwards. We have the LG G6, the iPhone 7 Plus, and the Pixel from Google.
Okay, so
it'll be interesting. I was thinking that we'll probably see again an iPhone with reduced bezels and a larger display. That's now seems to be the trend among the big guys. I wonder how long that'll last until everybody wishes they had a bezel again. I'm sort of half joking, but there. I was at Mobile World Congress a few weeks ago in Barcelona, and it was funny that a lot of attention went to that old phone from Nokia.
Nokia,
So there's a little bit of
yes.
a retro.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm half kidding here.
You know, I think that once you go to a larger display, it's really hard to go back. I resisted the iPhone Plus for a long time just because my hands are small. But with the better camera, I wanted the Plus this year, and I'm not going to go back to something smaller.
It's funny you say that because I can't tell you how, because I have a Plus, and people would say, how can you have such a big phone? You know, does it fit in your pocket? People, you know, and I said, trust me, it'll be nothing in a day or whatever, if that. I wonder if we're going to see less of that now, just because this seems to be the new normal, especially as you move them into smaller form factor.
Yeah, I think there's still a market for smaller form factor.
Because Apple still has the SE.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, you know, catering to that matters, which is why I think you're still going to see two devices, so the S8 and the Plus. But I agree, it's not going to be that much of a talking point going forward. I thought it was interesting, I don't know if we have time, but to mention DeX, because I think that plays into that idea that now with the larger form factors and the more powerful processors, these are computers in your pocket. You can be productive on these devices.
Yeah, why don't you explain to people what DeX is? It's basically a way to connect your phone to a larger monitor.
Correct. It is a docking station that has wireless charging, and then either via Bluetooth or HDMI, you can connect it to a monitor or even a TV. And you basically have now all of a sudden a way, you know, larger screen to do your work. And
we don't have DeX here to show off, but we have a picture of it here. So this is what Samsung DeX is. So as Carolina was explaining,
yeah, so you have the you actually have that right here on.
right here. And you put your phone in the dock,
Yeah.
and you can connect a mouse and keyboard and screen, and you can make your phone into an actual computer. It has Office.
Android, and it uses, there's also through virtualization Windows.
It does, and we've seen docking solutions before. You know, Motorola.
HP had one.
Motorola started the whole thing with the Atrix. ASUS had something, but to be honest, this is the first time that I see this done in a viable way, and that comes with obviously Android have done a good job in allowing you to render the applications on a larger screen, and then partnership with, as you were saying, virtualization partners and Microsoft with Office. So, you know, if what you do is editing a document on the fly, this is the way to go.
Right, just to remind people, we are at Lincoln Center, New York City, where Samsung this morning unveiled the highly anticipated Galaxy S8 and Galaxy S8 Plus smartphones. That's their new premium flagship devices, and the phones that they hope will change the conversation away from the Note 7, which kept catching fire.
Phones will be available April 21st.
April 21, you can pre-order them, if not today, in a day or so.
Pricing is around $700, $750 for the S8, which is what we're showing off right here. This is the smaller one, even though it has a 5.8-inch screen. There is no bezels.
Funny that we say smaller and it's 5.8.
I was just going to say the same thing. It's true.
It is smaller. It's the same size, around the same size as last year's Galaxy S7. So if you like the size of that phone, or the iPhone 7, it's comparable in size to that. It has that type of size. The larger S8 Plus, which we have charging here, we've been charging this now for close to 15, 20 minutes.
And no sign of smoke.
And no sign of smoke. So all those asking, like Reth Cow, if you're asking, is it bomb-proof? We're charging it. It doesn't. It seems to still be relatively cool. No problems yet. We'll do full testing once we get a unit.
I want to know, when you fly back to you're in California, right? When you fly back to California, are you still getting, or are they going to tell you to not carry a Note 7 on the plane?
I think they finally stopped.
I got that message going to Barcelona a couple of weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that was probably the most damaging part of the whole thing for Samsung, because you also had kind of sloppy announcements where it became just Galaxy or Samsung
Yeah.
without actually telling you which phone
I
it
talk
was.
to people all the time who are not techie, but they certainly know Samsung. And you tell them you're going to a Samsung event. Oh, are they going to blow up? I mean, it became a
It became a joke.
became a
Yeah.
punchline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now we're getting a lot of questions on battery life.
Yeah.
We don't yet have the battery life. I don't believe
I
they
have
haven't
not
said
seen
anything.
battery. I have not seen anything, and certainly we haven't had a chance to try it ourselves.
But Ed, do you know what the size
There
of
are,
the
big
battery is?
there are big batteries in there.
I believe it was 3,000 and 3,500
I believe that's
milliamps.
right. Do we know the size of the battery? We have a Samsung person here.
3,000 milliamps for the S8, and the Plus is 3,600, 3,500.
So 3,500 milliamps for the Plus, which is the bigger version of the phone. The S8 regular has 3,000. And what is that in terms of hours for people?
So the yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Can they
you
expect
tell
a
us-
full day?
Well, yeah. I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay, so we'll get those answers. We'll have them in Ed's full review, which will be up. Well, we don't know when yet.
We don't know
The phone
when
comes
yet.
Out April 21st.
It'll be in advance of that.
Yes, so keep it locked to usatoday.com/tech for all those answers and more. Anything else we want to touch on?
Well,
here?
we
The
touched
Gear
on the
VR.
Gear VR. They have that's their virtual reality headset, which they've had versions of for a couple of years now.
That's right.
They have a new one coming out. They have a new controller. They didn't have a controller before, unlike Google's alternative to their
Yeah.
system. Now there's a controller. I think that'll make a big difference.
It does. It really makes a difference as far as gaming is concerned. And I think that we need to credit Samsung with the original Gear because they have really made it possible for consumers to experience VR at an affordable price, and that means a lot because it's a very hard thing to explain if you haven't experienced it.
And that's always the challenge to get people to experience it. That's a big problem for the big systems at home like Oculus Rift and HTC Vive and so on.
Yeah, because not only for those systems you have a financial investment, but just even the setup in your home, not everybody wants to put up with that.
I'm going to just quickly mention, while we're all here talking about Samsung, this is a big day for Microsoft too because they announced that the new version of Windows 10, the Creators Update, is coming out in a couple of weeks as well. I believe it's April 11th, if my memory serves.
You have your full review?
It's a look at it. That's in our usatoday.com today. usatoday.com/tech, and you can read that as well as read all our coverage on Samsung.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions on batteries still. We're going to try to get those answers from a Samsung rep once we're done with the Facebook Live, and we'll tweet them out and update the story.
Questions are how long the battery
How
will
long
last.
the battery lasts.
Well, we can tell you, are there big batteries in there?
Right, so we know the size of the batteries, and Samsung has done a decent job in recent years of optimizing the batteries to get a full day. So we anticipate that, but we will confirm that with
It does
Samsung.
have wireless charging, and there is a new wireless charger, which we do have here.
Right, so we have
And
a wireless charger here. It's not plugged in at the moment because we're charging it through a cable. We've been charging this the S8 Plus. We've been charging it. A lot of questions on will these phones explode after the Note 7
We'll
fiasco.
let you know if they do.
We've been charging this now for 20 minutes. It hasn't really gotten warm. It's charging. It's at around 74%. So we'll keep you posted on that. There is a new wireless charger over here.
And that is Dex.
This is just a charger.
That is
This
Dex.
is Dex too.
So it
No, it's
functions
not- well,
both.
Yeah.
So it's your docking station and wireless charging at the same time.
Here's the actual charger. Yeah.
Charger. If we were to take the phone.
Oh, I guess that's Dex 2 over there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's Dex as well.
Wireless charger.
Right, but that's also Dex for the connection.
Right, there's a
No,
connection
that one,
there.
just, I'm not sure.
We will confirm and find Dex and get all these answers for you. Please keep sending in questions. Any questions you have, we will try to answer. In terms of pricing, around $700 to $750 is what we're seeing so far from carriers for the S8, which is the phone on your screen right now. The larger S8 Plus is around $800, $850. Let's see what else we got here. It has a headphone jack, for those wondering.
Oh yes, and it's USB-C. Probably mention
USB-C like all the latest Android phones, and that headphone jack is still there. You don't need to use wireless headphones, so you can.
Speaking of headphones, it comes with we should mention this. It comes with
a big cheer in the audience.
Yes, it was. It comes with AKG headphones. AKGs are made by Harman, which of course is a company that Samsung is in the process of acquiring.
That's right. And I think it was very politely, maybe a little dig at LG that decided not to ship any headphones with the G6.
Yeah. I was wondering though, supposedly the real reason, or not the real only reason, but the big reason that Samsung was interested in Harman was for self-driving car technology. But of course, Harman makes speakers and a lot of them, and a lot of high-end and low-end, and they're all across the spectrum.
Absolutely, and if you think that they actually were in the process of working with Microsoft for an Echo-like device. And now we know, obviously, that Samsung has acquired Viv. You might think that that's something else that they have in the making.
Right. Yeah, the other thing that they talked about is the S8 sort of fitting into the whole larger ecosystem, their broader Galaxy ecosystem with IoT. Samsung, of course, sells connected fridges and a whole bunch of stuff.
And this morning they announced the Samsung Connect, which is the actual device. So they have a router for the home that not only functions as a Wi-Fi mesh router, but it also will help to with every device that is SmartThings enabled will work with that as a hub.
Does that give them a big advantage? Again, we don't know what that's priced at yet, or at least I haven't heard.
They're not.
But there's Eero, there's Google has their router.
That's right.
So-called mesh-based technology. We're seeing a lot of routers in that category, and now Samsung is entering that market as well.
Yeah, it's something that I'm sure consumers that are interested in a connected home will look at. Wi-Fi coverage will become more crucial as everything that you have in the home is connected.
All right, so we get a lot of questions on the camera, which I fired up here. So this is the camera app. Carolina, Ed, how many megapixels are we looking at for the camera?
12 on the rear and 8
on the front.
So 12 megapixel camera over there, 8 megapixel camera on the front. There's a new feature for the front camera. It's got a focusing feature.
Yeah, it's autofocus, I believe, facial recognition.
Right.
Which, again, you could use for a selfie, or you can use as one of the ways to get past the lock screen.
Okay,
and very fast.
Now looking here, it looks like there's also filters inside the camera app, because everybody needs to be able to make themselves a bear. So, Ed, I'm going to point this at you. Let's see if this works. Look at that. You can do that. No, you don't need a special app. It's all in the camera app. You can make.
Be ashamed to see this picture?
I don't think so. It came out nicely.
It's kind of an interesting approach because it's different from what Apple has just done, right? Apple has given the opportunity to have all the bells and whistles that you will want for a proper Snapchat or any other video and picture messaging, but they have created a standalone app versus Samsung has integrated it in the main app.
Speaking of Apple, let me just ask you, as a prominent industry analyst, where does today's news that Samsung's finally brought out these phones, what is Apple? Again, Apple's going to have a 10th anniversary iPhone, the expectation in September. Of course, we may get some hints at WWDC, but what, a lot of this is leapfrog. Is this leapfrogging Apple now? What does Apple do to top them? I mean, where does it?
Yeah, every time is like this, right? When Apple comes up with something new, looking at Samsung, and Samsung does it because it's really about them. It's just Samsung and Apple, and everybody else is there, but
everybody else is everybody else.
Is everybody else, with the exception, I would say nowadays, of Huawei, that is really building outside of the U.S. The U.S. is still a very tough market for them. But in the US, is half a market is Apple and half a market is Samsung. Where does this leave Apple? Well, they do need to do something about their bezel. There's no question about it, because you can't get any physically bigger than than the Plus at the moment without really leaving people behind, because our hands are not getting any bigger.
And they haven't done anything with wireless charging yet either.
That's true.
So
And
they're a couple of generations behind, at least in terms of the feature being made available.
and I think, wireless charging, it is becoming more predominant. I just bought a new car and I have a wireless charging mat integrated in it. You find it in coffee shops. So while, a year ago, 2 years ago, it wasn't a big deal, now it starts to be.
Yeah. You have a question, Eli?
So right now we're getting some questions. Waterproofing, yes, it is still waterproof, just like last year's phones.
Yes.
Also dust resistant this year, which
Yes.
is new.
No.
No,
Oh,
I
not
believe they
dust-
had that before.
Yeah, they
Okay,
have
so
that.
there's
At
also
least
dust-
on the Note 7.
Okay, so waterproof, dust resistant. Let's see what else we got here. It comes out April 21st, for those wondering about that. Questions about Siri versus Bixby.
Well,
We haven't been able to try the voice on Bixby yet.
The voice is still a work in progress. Voice end of Bixby is still a work in progress.
It is. It is more, really think about it as an interface. And so it helps you navigate your phone in an easier way. And I think the ultimate idea for Samsung is not just about within the phone, but within the wider ecosystem of your home. So think about Bixby not just helping you with the S8, but maybe in a few months helping you with your television as well.
And the vision part of Bixby reminds me of the feature that Amazon had with the ill-fated Firefly.
That's right. They had Firefly, which was exactly the same thing. You would hover on a book or a bottle of wine or whatever it is that you were interested in, and you would get information.
Read barcodes and such.
Correct. What Samsung has done is partner with Amazon to be able to order some of the things that you'll recognize.
Okay, questions on storage. Is there a micro SD card in here?
Yes, there is, and it's 64 gigs internal.
So 64 gigabytes of internal storage.
And then you get
expand
expandable. And we should just, we were warned that we got to get out of here. So
Yeah, so we're going to have to wrap this up. Ed's full first look at the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus. We'll show them right here one more time. Grab that. Here's the S8 over here on the left. The S8 Plus, available April 21st between $700, $750 for the S8, $800, $850 for the S8 Plus. Ed's first look, usatoday.com/tech.
follow us on Twitter at EdBaig, EDBAIG.
I'm at Eli Blumenthal, ELIBLUMENTHAL.
And a special shout out to our special guest, Carolina Milanese,
That's right.
a respected industry analyst, creative strategies. Why don't you give your Twitter handle as well?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Caro_Milanese.
All right, thanks for joining us, and stay with us. We'll have more coverage on the Galaxy phones here and all things tech.
Thanks, everybody.